All right, ladies and gentlemen, this is John here, and this is another episode of Freedom to Draw Unsolved Mysteries. Guys, what's up? Today's case is a case of an unexplained death that happened in 1971. This case is the unexplained death of Joyce Margaret LePage. And just like every unexplained death and missing person case we have here, we put this down here. You have any information, these are the generic places, the broad scale places that you can call and get more information about leaving tips about this case. You can also leave a comment on the comment section of this episode, whether it be a tip or just any kind of message. Keep it positive and we'll be cool. We read all the messages. Without further ado, let's get down to business with the case of Joyce Margaret LePage. We're going to draw her and tell you a little bit about the case in several seconds actually. Let's get on with it, guys. Alright, we're going to draw Joyce Margaret LePage. We're going to tell you about her case as we're drawing her. The unsolved case of Joyce LePage. A bright future was doused. At behest of her family, a third generation of investigators picks up search for the killer of a promising young Washington State University student in the summer of 1971. Now this comes from the perspective of her relatives that are still alive, still seeking justice. It's been almost 43 years since Bruce LePage's sister was murdered, but he still has difficulty talking about her. Joyce LePage was a 21-year-old Washington State University student when she disappeared in the summer of 1971, and her decayed body was found 9 months later, wrapped in a carpet and dumped in a ravine south of Pullman. Had she not been killed, she could have lived her life 3 times over by now. She would have been 64, 2.5 years older than her brother Bruce. Bruce said she was a very friendly, outgoing girl who retired several years ago after farming his family's land near Pasco. She was a profuse writer. If she were still around, I think she'd have been a high school or college English professor. There is some question about where exactly Joyce died, but the carpet she was wrapped in came from the Stevens Hall women's dormitory. The assumption is that's where she was killed. The Washington State University officials say this is the only homicide, solved or unsolved, to have taken place on the Pullman campus. The search for her killer is the oldest active cold case for the university police, as well as the Whitman County Sheriff's Office. It's been handed down from one generation of investigators to the next, and now, thanks in part to her brother's efforts, it's been taken by a third generation. Bruce LePage has spoken with Whitman County Sheriff Brett Myers and Washington State University Police Officer Jeff Olmstead several times over the last few years, encouraging them to continue working on Joyce's case. When his father was alive, Bruce deferred to him, letting him decide how hard to push the investigation. After he died 3 years ago, though, Bruce felt the burden passed to him, and if whoever killed Joyce is still out there, he wants them found. I wouldn't be doing my sister right if we didn't take another look at all the persons of interest and eliminate them to the best of our ability, her brother said. Joyce LePage was last seen the evening of July 22nd, 1971, Friends dropped her at her off-campus apartment around 10 p.m. She was expected home in Pasco the weekend for a visit. The Tri-City Water Follies boat races were being held that weekend, LePage said. Joyce intended to come home for that. She also had a skydiving lesson scheduled in Moscow that Saturday, but never showed up. On July 23rd, a Friday, a carpet was reported missing from Stevens Hall. It isn't clear how long investigators took to connect the two. Joyce wasn't officially reported missing for 10 days, and it was sometime after that before police learned she liked to frequent the residence hall. The dormitory, originally constructed in 1895, is one of the oldest buildings on campus. It was being renovated that summer. She liked sneaking into the study and to write, and sometimes spent the night. LePage said his sister was in Pullman that summer to take a few courses. She'd recently completed her junior year and wanted to make sure she had enough credits to graduate the coming year. LePage said his sister was in Pullman that summer to take a few courses. Joyce was the second of the 5 LePage kids to attend Washington State University. He said her older sister earned a business administration degree there. Bruce started as a freshman in the fall of 1970. We have a lot of family history in that area, he said. My mother was raised on campus. Her father taught accounting there. We all attended Washington State University, except for my youngest brother. For Joyce, it was like a home to her. Bruce dropped out of school March 71 after his father was injured in a farming accident. The family raised wheat and clover and had a seed cleaning and process facility. He worked there, then took a job on another farm near Yakima that summer. When Joyce went missing, he quit and came home. The family was so busy with the farming and the seed business, they hardly had time to deal with the issue, he said. They left it in the hands of police. As time went on, it became obvious that something bad had happened. There was no dynamics at home that would have kept her from checking in, her brother said. A Moscow high school student hunting for games discovered Joyce's skeletal remains in Wawawai Canyon in April of '72. That helped the family find some sense of closure. That was way better than finding the body, LePage said. We were able to have a funeral and friends could come and mourn. Sheriff Myers first read about Joyce's murder years ago while working his way up in the department. After Bruce contacted him in 2012, he began devoting time and resources to the case. While he thinks the initial investigators did a competent job, Myers said if the murder happened today, it would probably be solved, and solved quickly. That's largely due to improved technology, he said. Students in '71 didn't walk around with cell phones. There may not have been a single telephone in an entire dormitory, and there probably weren't security cameras in any retail stores. Investigators also didn't know anything about DNA, so physical evidence wasn't necessarily stored in a way that facilitated future analysis. The delay before Joyce was reported missing and the much longer delay before her body was found added to the complexity of the case. Myers said it led to multi-jurisdictional investigation, which Washington State University Police initially looking for a stolen carpet, Pullman Police investigating a missing person, and the sheriff's office getting involved after the body was found in the county's jurisdiction. That makes it difficult to piece together today what Washington State University did, what Whitman County did, Myers said. The FBI was called to help identify the remains and to determine a cause of death. Analysts found bone markings consistent with knife wounds, so the belief is that she was stabbed to death. It may have been a homicide or an accidental death that was covered up, but the FBI analysis suggests it was murder, Myers said. Certainly, someone has knowledge of her death. As a first step in pursuing the cold case, he and Officer Olmsted at the Washington State University put together a comprehensive case file, making sure they both had copies of all available investigative documents and narratives. Then they came up with the ideas on how to proceed. Part of the process is just going through and making sure each person who had access, means, and a possible motivation, if they're still alive, at least gets interviewed and polygraphed one last time, Myers said. That's the least we can do for the family. One of the biggest steps forward in the case, for example, came in December when a major suspect spoke with investigators and passed a polygraph exam. He was interviewed immediately after Joyce's disappeared, and again after the body was found, but he never had taken the polygraph, Myers said. He hadn't been contacted again since about 1972. We met with him and said, here's how he could help. He was very cooperative and passed a polygraph. I'm confident at this point that we can focus on other avenues. That's a big change in the investigation in terms of our focus. Myers also set some physical evidence to the Washington State Crime Lab, which had never been done before. He's hoping something will turn up, although after more than 40 years he realizes the chances are slim. Over the years, some investigators thought Joyce might be an unconfirmed victim of the serial killer Ted Bundy, in part because he was known to the public to the Pacific Northwest at the time, and because Joyce was attractive and physically similar to other victims. That remains a possibility, but Myers said Bundy is more likely a side issue, someone investigators looked at when other leads went cold. There is no real evidence he was involved or in the area, he said. It seems like any time someone was caught murdering someone on a college campus, investigators looked to see if they'd been in Pullman. There's always a chance that it was a complete stranger, but more than likely it was someone who was close and in her circle of friends. The vast majority of people who are murdered are killed by someone who knows them and who have access to them. I think there was rumors saying that yellow Volkswagen that Bundy always rode around in, he's infamous, known for that. The yellow Volkswagen Bug. It said it was seen on the day that she went missing, but I think they were just rumors. None of them were confirmed. They thought of Bundy because he did this later. He attacked a sorority campus. In Florida. And they think maybe this was the idea, the beginning of that idea. But it's a stretch. There's no confirmed sightings of that Volkswagen Bug. Attempts are now being made to contact some of the other individuals who were in Joyce's circle of friends. It would be nice to bring this to a logical conclusion and hold someone responsible, said Olmsted, who inherited the LePage case after Washington State University Sergeant Don Mopin retired several years ago. I think that's the ultimate goal for the LePage family and for all the other officers who investigated this over the years. My worst fear is what if we were never even close? What if it was someone who slipped through the cracks, who was never identified or interviewed by the early investigators? After over 43 years, LePage said he understands the difficulty of even identifying Joyce's killer, much less bringing them to justice. If we can weed the list down and show that someone did or didn't do it, I'm good with that, he said, but it would be nice to have justice for Joyce. Joyce had a great future ahead of her. Her life was cut short way too soon. Another reason why I don't think it's Bundy never wrapped people up in carpets, and he was known for not leaving any evidence. It just doesn't sound like something he would do, wrap someone up in a carpet and leave them be found and a year later. Bundy was known for never leaving any evidence. He would decapitate his victims and bury the bodies way deep in mountainous areas where he had hiked. I don't believe, unless I'm mistaken, I don't believe he would dump people in rivers. Maybe I'm wrong. But they're looking to rule people out, and I think you can rule Bundy out on this one. It is important. It's interesting to note that when they did ask him about this specific murder before he was executed, he said, did that one happen in 72? Like, maybe he had a similar one, but I don't see him. He was notorious for never leaving any evidence, and wrapping a body in a carpet and dumping him in a river was just something that I don't think he did much of. And he was right in his prime too during this time. He was a well experienced killer in 71. He was doing them all the time. And that wrapping them in the carpet seems like a mistake to me. I don't know, like I said, I draw them, I don't solve them. This one is about to be in the books, guys. This is the unexplained death of this beautiful girl, Joyce Margaret LePage. That does another case drawn. I draw them, I don't solve them. So if you have any tips or anything, like we always say, contact these places. Or you could also leave a tip in the comment line, or just comment in general. We read them all. Comments are appreciated. Likes are appreciated. Shares are appreciated. Subscriptions are appreciated too. That's all I'm going to say about that. We don't beg you. Like I said before, guys, another case in the books. Joyce Margaret LePage. Peace out, true believers.